Good evening. I'm Craig Center. I'm a retired agriculture teacher and FFA advisor here in Harnett County, and I have been honored and very flattered to be asked to be the speaker for this year's Farm City Banquet. Of course, it's going to be virtual this year because of the COVID world that we currently live in. I'm speaking to you today from the Cub Barn, and I'll say a few comments about this facility later on today. As an ag teacher, I often use the FFA Creed as a teaching tool to help students learn about public speaking and communicating skills. I would often require them to memorize the first paragraph of the creed, and then we would build on public speaking from that. As I recall, the first paragraph of the creed went like this: I believe in the future of agriculture, with a faith born not of words but of deeds, achievements won by the present and past generation of agriculturalists in the promise of better days through better ways, even if the better things we now enjoy have come to us from the struggles of former years. Within the creed, there's a key phrase in there that mentions the present and past generation of agriculturalists. And that's what I've been asked to address today in this presentation, is compare past versus present farming here in Harnett County. Now, my recollection of the past is going to be tied to my childhood growing up here on our family farm where we are today in the 60s and 70s. Growing up on the farm, my grandpa was a very typical farmer of that day, had about 30 acres of tobacco, and he was also a dairy farmer. He started a dairy farm operation in the 50s that lasted through the 80s, milked around 100 Holstein cows. In this community, there were probably 25 farmers that grew tobacco. The average crop size in the past was probably 10 to 30 acres. Tobacco then, as well as now, is still the major cash crop commodity. And tobacco in the past was all raised manually with manual labor. The plants were started in plant beds in outside field areas. The plants had to be manually pulled by hand and bundled up and taken to the field for transplanting. It was harvested by hand. We call that priming back in my day. There would usually be 3 or 4 primings each year for the crop. It was hauled to the barns on trailers. We called them tobacco drags or sleds. It was then actually looped on a stick, a tobacco stick, if you will, and hung into stick barns. We have 3 of those still standing on our family farm today. And then it was cured or heated and dried out with either oil or gas burners. Now, before my time, it was actually cured with wood. There's some remnants of the wood furnaces still on our tobacco barns here today on our farm. The market structure in the past was an auction type market where farmers would take their tobacco to a warehouse and it was sold in an auction type format. Farming in the past was not very diversified. Tobacco was the major cash crop then. But on the other hand, farmers in the past were very self-sustaining. Most farms had a few hogs on the farm, and I remember in my childhood days, we would actually have a hog killing, and that was a big process. Usually in November, December, we would actually slaughter probably 10 to 15 hogs, and we would process everything from that hog except the squeal, as the old saying used to go. We would salt down the hams and the shoulders and the sides, and we would grind sausage, and that would provide the farm families in the past their pork meat for the whole year. Some farmers in the past would even process a beef. Vegetable gardening was very big in the past farming in Harnett County. Every farmer had a big vegetable garden, and they would can and freeze and have vegetables provided for the family for the whole winter then. Also in the 50s, before my time, we had a couple of years of severe drought. Farmers almost had total crop destruction in those drought years. And to keep farmers in production and in business, the government in those days subsidized farmers to build irrigation ponds. So many farmers did that, and some farmers invested in irrigation equipment And I remember growing up in June, that's about what we did in June, was irrigate tobacco. And that's changed today. Farmers in the early years could actually buy a farm and pay for it farming. I remember in the 60s and 70s, on several occasions, farmers could actually purchase a farm when it came up for sale, and they would actually pay for that farm by farming tobacco and other things. So move ahead now to present day farming. It's really changed, as we all know. There are fewer farmers now growing more acreage. In this community, there's only 4 farmers left that's growing all of the tobacco in Northwest Harnett community here. Farmers today have to be outstanding business managers. They work off of a laptop. They have to be very good at record keeping with their labor and their pesticide applications and their equipment. They really have to be outstanding managers to stay in business today. Farming today is highly mechanized. Tractors are bigger, more horsepower. You're seeing farmers, especially in the Midwest, using the GPS technologies and computerized operation of equipment, and even crop mapping systems today to determine the nutrient needs of their crops. Tobacco is still one of the major cash commodities, even in today's farming. The average size crop today for a farmer is probably 200 acres or more. It's totally mechanized. Plants today are grown in greenhouses in a semi-hydroponic system where the seeds are germinated in float trays. The nutrients are actually put in the water that the trays float in. And then at transplant time, the laborers can just pick the trays up and go to the field with them. It saves a lot of labor that way. It's totally handled by mechanization, from harvesting through processing in the barns and all of that today. So it's a entirely different way to grow the crop. The market system now is on contracts, where the farmer contracts with a major tobacco company and grows the amount of tobacco that the contracts will call for. Farmers are also looking at alternative crops. I know my cousin, who still farms here on our family farm, his major cash commodity is broilers, and he has 4 broiler houses that he grows organic broilers for one of the major companies. You hear about hemp being grown as a crop. Some farmers are looking at hemp. There's some market challenges with that they're trying to work out, but that also has a profit potential. And in today's farming, you're also seeing a revival of some traditional crops. Peanuts, cotton are grown now in Harnett County to a good extent. Of course, the traditional crops, corn and soybeans and wheat, are still important commodities here in Harnett County. Farmers today and landowners are looking at alternative ways to generate income and to utilize the natural resources on our farms. A term that's popular today is agritourism. And you're seeing that trend today where landowners and farmers are putting in corn maze in the fall. At Christmas time, they're using Christmas light shows and hay rides and those kinds of things. These irrigation ponds are now turning into farm fishing ponds. And some farmers are utilizing that as an avenue. This cub barn that I spoke of earlier is an example of agritourism, where I'm trying to use my Farmall Cub tractor collection and trying to facilitate a public avenue here for people to come and drive tractors that's never done that. Hay rides for the children and corn shelling and things of that nature. So landowners and farmers today are looking at ways to utilize the things in agritourism, to utilize their natural resources, to generate future uses of the farms today. Farmers today can no longer buy a farm. Land prices have just gotten so high because of development pressure. You just can't pay $25,000 plus per acre of land to keep it in production any longer. So farmers today are renting land. They just can't economically justify buying a farm anymore on that. In closing, I remember the last paragraph of the creed went like this: And I'm going to substitute in the word hornet in this last paragraph. It went, I believe that Harnett County agriculture can and will hold true to the best traditions of our natural life, and that I can exert an influence in my home and community which will stand solid for my part in that inspiring task. You know, folks, in Harnett County, we do have an inspiring task in the future. We have a big challenge ahead of us as we look at Harnett County becoming urbanized. We're seeing a lot of our farmland transition from production to residential housing. And there's going to be a lot of challenges for the future. We've got to be creative and find ways for agriculture and urbanization to coexist in Harnett County. You know, there's nothing prettier than riding through the countryside and seeing our beautiful green fields and crops and the tractors and the cattle. That's a beautiful sight, and we all love that. A lot of people want to come out here and live to see that. But we must also understand that sometimes agriculture is slow on the highways. People get aggravated driving behind tractors and equipment. Sometimes agriculture has an odor to it. I know I use organic fertilizers, chicken litter, on my hay land to grow hay. So we use chemicals and fertilizers and things like that. So there's some things about agriculture that we've got to understand and even tolerate to a degree so that we can coexist. And farmers, on the other hand, we've got to be tolerant of these urbanization areas and respect people's living quarters and realize they have rights to the road as well. So hopefully in the future we can learn to coexist, be creative, and find ways that we can support one another in this world we live in today. Thank you, and may God bless.